It is the Anfield Wrap. I am Neil Atkinson, and with me I've got Fuad, Hasan, I've got Neil Docking, and I've got Rob Gutmann. Before then, though, for the 23-24 season, the Anfield Wrap is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. Green King Sport venues are showing live televised Liverpool fixtures all across the season. So instead of worrying about a stream, get with your mates and get to the local Green King pub and get closer to the action. They've launched the Green King Sport Instagram page, which will be the home to fan content, deals and competitions through the season. So that will be there for you. So if you drop them a follow on Instagram, you'll be the first to find out about everything they're up to. You'll also be helping the Anfield Wrap, and we do some bits and pieces for them as well over the course of the season. Next bit of admin, because if I don't do it at the top of the show, Craig Hannon will have me hung, drawn and quartered. The Anfield Wrap are on tour in North America in November. So if you go to the AnfieldWrap.com/TAW live, we are in Chicago on Wednesday the 15th of November, then Vancouver Thursday the 16th, Los Angeles Friday the 17th, Phoenix Saturday the 18th, Austin Sunday the 19th, and Atlanta Monday the 20th, and then we get to come home and prepare for Manchester City away. So it's the AnfieldWrap.com/TAW live, and you can get all the tickets there, and it will be fabulous. I'm really, really looking forward to it, genuinely. It's going to be the absolute business, because we're getting to talk about this wonderful football team. I've got Fuad, Neil and Rob, and we can have it all.
I read this on your agenda and I thought I was on the American tour and you hadn't told me.
No.
I thought that was a bit of a shock, but okay.
See how you're doing.
I thought, and Fu, and you.
A good way to prepare for Man City, a week of drinking in America.
Yeah.
You sold me. Sorry.
They're very good, aren't they? Liverpool 3, Nottingham Forest 0 to the business.
Yes, it was a nice calm one. We seem to be getting calmer as the season's developing, don't we? The obligatory giving the opposition a goal start. I'm not saying it's a distant memory, but it is not something we're doing as routinely. I enjoyed the patience of it. I mean, that's to state the obvious, because the first 50. When did we score first? Was it 22 or something like that, or 27? I don't know. It feels like I was waiting a while, and I was patient, and that's not normal. But the patience was something to be admired, because if you watch the highlights back of that, I don't think we have a shot or a highlight worthy effort before we actually score. But it's okay. Forest have come with that game plan to low block the fuck out of it, and they do it really well. But Liverpool, I feel like I've watched Liverpool teams in the past where you go, this is going to be a desperately long afternoon, because we have no ideas how to get round this. But we were just patient. We were pulling them from side to side to side, waiting and waiting. And when that chance, the half chance came, we took it. It was a wonderful thing to behold.
It is consummate, Fuad. It is professional. I would have liked the fourth, but I never really wanted the fifth. And the reason why is 5, everyone can get a little bit carried away. There can be a little bit of, it feels almost too much in a way for one game. I like the feeling of a truly professional Liverpool that just deals with the Nottingham Forest, gets its business done, gets out.
Yeah, it's a few sort of 3-0s, 3-1s now, isn't it, at Anfield this season? And it's always nice a 3-0, I think. I think, obviously, from the second goal onwards, it felt a little bit flat till the third goal came, but that was Liverpool sort of resting, and I'm sorry I've jumped ahead there a bit, but it was everything I wanted to see in terms of, a post Thursday sort of Europa League performance, where you have everyone back. You have your starters, you have the players, you've got a bit of momentum from that Thursday game in Gravenberch and in Jota, who've been able to come into the side, ride that kind of crest of a wave, and they've all contributed in that. In every sense, I think it felt like one of those where, even players who didn't shine particularly let other players shine. And I thought that even with Szoboszlai, a lot of the good stuff we saw with Trent, with Salah, was him just facilitating it in a really subtle way a lot of the time, drifting out wide, pulling players apart. They all seem in such good kind of rhythm with each other and creating tempo, in possession. I think that's been the hard thing, when Liverpool have sort of made this evolution in terms of being a bit more dominant on the ball. Sometimes when it is games like that, you do have to create your own tempo, your own intensity, and a lot of that you can tell at the start if Liverpool have got that in them. They did on Sunday.
It seemed to me, Neil, and I wrote this when I wrote the piece last night, they almost upped the temperature or moved through the gears almost in such an imperceptible way. So as soon as it felt like they upped it, they went 1-0. Just 3 minutes before, Nunez gets in from a similar tight angle, and he has a really optimistic shot where he tries to force it past the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper saves it like he should. And then Nunez is in again. 2-3 minutes. Like, it genuinely felt like, right, we've gone up a level. And then suddenly it was 1. And then we went up a level. And then suddenly it was 2. And we're like, right, that's that then. For at least until half time. It was the old metaphor about upping the temperature, boiling a frog. That's what Liverpool do to Nottingham Forest in that first half period.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be talking about boiling frogs.
and yeah, here we are.
But here we are.
It's grim, isn't it?
Again, it's a hate. It's horrible.
It's Halloween,
really
isn't it?
unpleasant. It's really unpleasant.
Yeah, spooky one.
I regret the whole thing now.
Yeah,
it's
all right.
wrong. It's wrong.
You meant well.
Yeah.
I wondered if we saw the game that we would have seen against Everton if it hadn't been for the red card, where we were starting to feel like we were going to force something, we were going to create something with the counters we had against them before the red card, and then the game changes because they necessarily change. But obviously it's the second week in a row where we've played the dross of the league at home, where... but it is.
To give them their full title.
To give them their full title. Our Merseyside brethren. But it's the second week in a row where we played the dross of the league at home, and it felt to me just like a no contest. I didn't... At no stage was I concerned or under any illusions that we were going to win the game, not going to win the game. And we just upped it. And as you say, we've got so much quality now in the attacking side of things. Our attacking prowess is so vast that I just expect the goal to come. But then when the first goal did come, as you say, we then increased everything. The tempo went up another level. I thought Jota was so good for both goals. Yeah. His anticipation for the first one. And then the second one, it's him who checks and cuts back and plays that lovely ball swept across the side. And then Szoboszlai and Salah, all game long, Salah was playing that almost blind pass around corners for Szoboszlai on the overlap. And you can just tell that he loves that Salah. He loves having Szoboszlai there, making that run. And the difference to when Henderson used to make it is Szoboszlai just has so much more quality on the ball in terms of the cross he can then put in. I mean, he just serves it up on a plate for Nunez. And then at 2-0, it just felt the game was just done and dusted. It was over at that point. And we played a little bit like that for half an hour.
Yeah, I was, Neil, come back to you on that. My only real sort of period of anything that approached anxiety was sort of from 55 to about 65, 70, solely because they had Ioniwi on the bench, and we've seen what he can do to us in the past. He looks such a good player.
He was excellent in April, wasn't he?
He was excellent in April, and I was just concerned if he comes on, this could change a little bit. They haven't had a focal point, they're going to get one. But that's what I was worried about. If you see what I mean, I wasn't worried about anything that I was actually seeing on the pitch there, and then I wasn't like, oh, this is how they're going to get back in or anything like that. I was worried about the potential threat of a footballer who looked good from April who's coming back from injury, and that was my only real concern. And then just at the moment where you might have been able to articulate that concern, Szoboszlai plays a brilliant blind pass through to Salah. Confusion ensues. Left backs get in the way of goalkeepers, and then he calmly strokes it into the net. And this is, again, this feeling of there was maybe the missed chance from Dominguez where he doesn't get the shot away just before, and I sort of felt as though that sorted Liverpool out. It was like, all right, yeah, that one's happened, so now what we're going to do, we're just going to be better again. And then the chance was there to counter, and there's the goal. You know what I mean?
It was almost a jolt, wasn't it?
But my point though is that's how calm we all were. It was you were concerned about potential threat, not any actual threat.
Yeah, well, I like how you're describing the football fan psyche there.
Yeah,
where you're sitting there imagining problems that might materialise.
Yeah.
It felt almost Benitez-esque, I thought, that 10-15 minutes. And that's something we've very rarely seen under Klopp, where you look at the clock and it's 55, and then you're just sort of talking amongst yourselves, watching but not really paying too much attention. Oh, it's 70 minutes. Last season especially, we just couldn't have a quiet 10 minutes. At no stage in the season did it feel like we had a quiet 10 minutes in us. Whereas now we're just able to just control, hold at arm's length. And again, that's something we've not really seen other than perhaps the title-winning season. It's not been, even before that under Jurgen when we were great, it was just all or nothing, wasn't it? All the time, it felt. Whereas now we just have that ability to see out 10 or 15 minutes. And when the third goal comes, there's always that relief because then the result is officially confirmed in your mind. You think, well, 3-0, we've definitely got the 3 points here. And much thanks to Turner for the helping hand on the way. But I have to say, at no point was I worried, really, even with the prospect of Only on the bench.
I think the manager talks about it a little bit afterwards. They stay compact while being creative. So Forest have only got themselves 2 shots by the 84th minute. I mentioned before the Dominguez non-shot, which is an opportunity. He should get a shot away. It doesn't get counted in the stats because he doesn't strike the ball. I mean, we have a couple of instances not dissimilar in the game as well. It's worth pointing out as part of football. But on the whole, Liverpool, for me, what's most impressive is that they are able to be continually creative, carry a threat, whilst also just being genuinely very, very compact.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a bit of a sea change in the way the opposition are approaching us as well, especially at Anfield. I think what we saw last season is some early examples of emboldened teams getting their reward, and then we get into the whole syndrome of being this team who are fragile and vulnerable to the first strike by a smaller team who goes, you know what, the best thing to do against Liverpool, have a go at them. That happens and becomes sort of like it became like a vicious cycle for us. But we've reversed the trend really. We've shown we're a really good team. We've battered. I mean, our Anfield record now. I think we're a year or over a year without defeat at Anfield. We must have strung quite a number of wins together quietly, or a number of wins with maybe one missing. So teams, I think, and you could see it against Everton. You could see it again, definitely again against Forest. These were teams which came with really no ambition at all. And I think that enables us to look more defensively solid. And Klopp talked a lot, I know you want to talk about him in depth, Arthur talked a lot about McAllister. He gives you the six that isn't the six role, which is what you need against a low block. So you get to look everything, you get to look compact, but yet you just have this creative hub rather than having the defensive shield, which you don't need. I think it looks compact. I wonder how compact it looks against, a peer like a Man City or an Arsenal. Those are tests, but it is progress.
But what I think, Rob, for me, the whole game, and Neil's called it the dross, which is fine. I just say the bottom 10. I think
a bit more respect there.
I think it bodes well for the beat the bottom 10 plan. Last season, home and away, Liverpool don't get anywhere near enough points from the teams that finish in the bottom 10. Home and away, better at home, like you say, but away, a bit of a problem over this. I feel as though this whole thing bodes really well for this idea that there's 60 points available against the teams that finish in the bottom 10. And I think this is a Liverpool team that's built to get at least 55. And I think they'll be disappointed if they don't.
Yes, and I think the key to doing that is to set the marker down, which we have to put them in their place early on, to just go, look, this is what happens when we play you. It's not going to be this mad game where occasionally a Leeds beat Liverpool at home or a Forest get to beat us away. Touch wood, that's just something we've moved their psyches away from here. So, yeah, I think it's important to... It's easy enough for us. It's the easiest thing in the world to say we should get 55 out of 60 or 60 out of 60, but we've got to walk the walk. And against all we haven't dropped points against the lower teams yet, have we? So who is it? It's Chelsea, Spurs, and remind me, somebody else we dropped points against this season. Brighton. Okay, so all top sides. So and
all away.
Yeah, so we've completed the task 100% thus far, and I think football is noticing.
I think as part of this, Fuad, that's where the quality of the goals makes a big difference, and the quality of the differing threats that all four of the forward players who play in the game have got from a Liverpool point of view and what they're backed up by. But the quality of the moves for the goals is just absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant to watch. It's brilliant to see how, not only are we talking about the three that play up top combining and sort of interchanging, if you like, but also you get the surge from midfield that, we've been longing for, that we've sort of been craving after last season. And I really like that sort of the idea of what Salah sort of has become in this and how, Jota and Nunez especially, I think the two of them together as well, they complement each other quite nicely. I feel like Nunez has that natural tendency still, in the right moments, to drift out, to play in that little channel that Salah slips him through for the first goal, doesn't he? And he gets the shot away. And when he is sort of sharp, when he is ready, he can be deadly, can't he, with his finishing? And it's actually the nature of the shot that creates that goal, because it is going in that top corner and the keeper's forced, to get anything on it and direct it anywhere he can. So essentially it's an assist, isn't it, really, in terms of how he strikes it. And yeah, Jota as well. I just really like the intelligence that they've shown, and the fact that all three of them have the ability to go beyond each other, but then also hang back and play the pass is really sort of encouraging. And I was just in love with that right hand side deal. I really, really loved how the three of them, Trent, Szoboszlai, Salah, played with each other, and just sort of the freedom, but also sort of the control that they had when needed is kind of back to what Liverpool were at their best, where we see that right hand side just control games sort of on its own and allow each other to sort of make runs in behind and have that freedom. So it's really exciting to see those partnerships and trios especially back.
I think the interesting thing about the right-hand side is Salah's, it's an obvious one, but Salah's changing role.
Yeah.
It used to be that when we came out in the transition, that Salah would be the widest man to the right, and we would look for him to exploit the space in behind and to use that explosive pace, which he doesn't quite have anymore. we now tuck him right in. He's almost like the Harry Kane figure we want to pop the ball into, and a Nunes or Szoboszlai will run off the back of him, off the side of him, into spaces. It's almost like Trent and Salah both going narrow, sucking everyone in, and then there's absolute open space for anyone. I mean, it's not just Szoboszlai and Nunes, by the way. Again, the goal that wasn't against Spurs is Luis Diaz making that run. We're just pulling everyone to the side of the pitch that they don't want to be on.
Exactly, and he looks so comfortable out there as well, Szoboszlai, when he does have to drift out wide. I mean, he literally plays there for Leipzig, doesn't he, for a little bit? But he looks so comfortable, coming out in that position, and the quality, like Neil said before, is supreme, isn't it? And then later on, we see him, change roles again, and you see him pop up in central positions and get shots away. So the fact that if you're an opposition sort of full back and midfield, and you're looking at what Liverpool have got to offer in an attacking sense, it is sort of wave after wave, because you think you've got Mo Salah, and then suddenly you've got this midfielder bursting through the lines and creating sort of havoc and pushing you all over the place, and space opens up then for the others. So it's so great to see, and it's so sort of naturally it naturally works. Obviously lots of work goes into it, but it just feels so natural at the moment.
It's the variety to it as well, isn't it? I think at the start of the season, all the focus was on Trent Alexander-Arnold, the new position, and it felt like all of our play was going through him all of the time. And I wondered if that was going to cause problems for us later down the line, where people are going to target him, stop Liverpool. And I thought he had a good game yesterday, and he's able to show his quality, but it doesn't have to be focused on him. All our play doesn't have to build from him. And I think, again, even with Robertson out injured, you might think the focus would be even more on Trent, but I didn't really notice that. I think that we're building centrally far more often and then fanning out wide, at the latter stages of attacks, whereas it used to always be the switch early on. So it's fantastic to watch.
Next thing for me, Neil, was excellent performances from McAllister and Van Dijk in sort of quite different ways. It was one of those games that Virgil's involved in, but you feel as though he's rising above, dictating, doing all the obvious stuff that he does when he's at his very best. But McAllister first, because he really, really set the tone of winning every battle early in the game, but not just winning the battle in terms of, coming out with the ball or the ball going dead, immediately being able to progress it and move it forward, and that's why I thought that the creativity of him, while still doing all that other stuff as well, I thought was so important, because it just meant that if you were Nottingham Forest, you never had a minute to get set. You were always never quite set, because McAllister's got Liverpool the ball back and on the front foot. Yeah,
because when he wins it, he's not looking for a sideways pass or back to his centre half. He's looking to turn and progress us forward immediately, and obviously we saw that with the first goal. I'm not sure if I appreciated quite how good his performance was at the time. I came out the ground thinking he played well, but it was only when I watched it back I realised that he was involved in quite so much. That speaks to me and not paying attention.
Well, it speaks to the nature of that certain bits of that role. You saw some, if I say take it for granted, it's the wrong way to phrase it, but it is doing the dirty work, and you like the dirty work to be done. You just don't necessarily want to watch it at times. And I think that's the thing. But again, the dirty work was done, but the flip side was very, very quickly it was into the ball progression as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes I think you can focus on the attacking brilliance of Szoboszlai and Gravenberch as well, because it's so eye-catching, the way they play and the speed with which they carry the ball forward. But no, he was excellent. It was something like 7 or 8, was it, really crucial recoveries? I'm sure that's a Phil Blundell stat that I'm passing off as fact.
Excellent.
But it was superb. But you may move on before I get the chance to say this. I just thought Van Dijk was supreme.
I'm going to bring you back around to Van Dijk. Don't worry at all. Van Dijk's getting a good 10 minutes here. We'll come back onto Van Dijk, Fuad. For me, one of the things that I thought was noticeable from McAllister was it looked like the game where, in terms of not just the winning it back, but in terms of being able to progress it quickly, it looked like the game where he knew where all of his teammates were. For the first time, I felt it really looked like it wasn't just as simple as he knew exactly where he was, he knew exactly what he expected the opposition to do, and he knew, without even having to look or just a very, very quick little screen, he knew Szoboszlai will be there, Gravenberch will be there, Salah will be there, Trent will be there. It looked for the first time like he had that knowledge as well.
Yeah, totally. And we talk about doing the dirty work, but I think the evolution of that role and what the manager sort of wants from that role now, and what we're seeing generally is, you have to do the ugly bit, but then really quickly you have to switch and play the intricate ball and play the really smart, sharp pass full of quality. And he does it again, doesn't he? He does it a few times yesterday. And then there's also the one in the derby, isn't there, before the second goal, where he plays such a brilliant piercing ball through the middle of the pitch. And it's such a hard thing, I think, to make look good, because when it does go wrong, it really doesn't look great, and it looks like, oh well, he's lost the ball again just on the transition. But I'm really enjoying the fact that he's sort of comfortable now doing that. He looks a lot more comfortable doing that dirty work and relying on the others around him. And he's got such good ball carriers to feed the ball to. If it's not the forwards, it's Szoboszlai, it's Gravenberch, it's Trent now who's able to come into those positions. Yeah. And that just makes everything sort of a lot easier, and it makes those channels that he has to feed the ball through look much bigger than they probably did a few weeks ago.
I didn't realise what a good technical player he was, having watched him last season. I thought he was a play knitter. Obviously intelligent, good one. I thought he was a good one-touch footballer. He'd keep you moving. Ideal for what we need. But his quality, less so. In the derby, I think he really excelled. He showed his range of passing, but he is a quality passer of the ball. You can play. He is in an old-fashioned money a playmaker, and you could play him 20 yards further forward or where we're playing him now. I think when you have two eights the way we do, who are able to put pressure on the ball ahead of him, he's able to play this Pirlo-like role, or even not quite shabby Alonso, because he's a different style of player, but it's not a million miles off it. He is truly creative from that, in a way that we're not used to seeing under Klopp, because Fabinho was not that player, although he's technically very strong and he could play a pass, but we weren't asking him to do that. But I feel we've adapted the way the midfield plays, and Klopp's always right. He always says this. Yes, he's not a six, but he can play a six, but it depends what everyone else does. Yeah. When everyone else does that job, the eights is really what I think who he's talking about primarily, but also the forwards are required to do the pressing. Then he can be this absolute sublime playmaker, and that's what we're seeing.
I think it's interesting what you said there about what everyone else does as well, because I think there's already a focus on, well how will he do in that role against Manchester City? How will he perform against Arsenal? Obviously, the proof's in the pudding. But Szoboszlai, we've seen in some of these games, is able to drop back and sit in alongside him and give him that extra protection. So it won't be something that he has to do on his own when suddenly we face, the quality, top quality sides at our level or higher in the league. It'll be a team effort. They'll be alongside him, helping him in that role.
I have a mad shout for when we eventually how this team evolves. If Szoboszlai, McAllister, and let's just pick Gravenberch, become the sort of the three chosen together more than most, although Curtis Jones is putting his hand up here somewhere. But let's just go with that argument. I could actually see Gravenberch and Szoboszlai doing a double pivot role with McAllister ahead of them as the playmaker behind the front three against the harder teams. It's a bit early to call it because I think they need practice doing it. But I just think the physicality of Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, they could be an incredible double pivot. I know I'm going off piste here, but
that's fine.
It's a shout for the future.
I like it as a shout. The manager spoke intriguingly of McAllister. I think today everyone could see the benefit of a player who comes from the offensive side of the game rather than the other side. In a game where you have to create things, where you have to pass, where you have to switch sides. That's how it is, because not all balls reach the target. And went on to talk about the counter-pressing from there and how well he had defensively a lot of top moments, really killed the counter and stuff like this. Van Dijk then, Neil. We are at the Van Dijk point. I think it's another 2 back-to-back home performances where I think he's been absolutely sublime. I think he's managed to effectively run the football match from left-hand side at centre-half and anticipated everything brilliantly and got Liverpool moving forward expertly.
Yeah, he was always a leader and he was always someone who organised and was always talking. But it seems more than ever now, he's almost directing everything ahead of him. Everything comes with his instruction, which is great to see. But the other thing for me is, when he was at his peak, he obviously had those physical gifts that set him apart from any other player in the world in his position. And sometimes the skill of his defending was in not engaging, in not even having to defend. People used to joke about him defending by aura alone, where he would just sort of channel people the way he wanted them to go. Now I like the fact that he's almost actively engaging in the art of defending. It's like he's switched on all the time. It's not the same. It was almost like such a relaxed style that he had at his peak. Whereas now there's just more aggression with it, and you can see him really relishing every individual duel, and it's a different type of Virgil that we hadn't seen before. And it turns out he's bloody brilliant at that as well.
It's yesterday's performance, as I say, building on the Everton performance. For me, I think it's invaluable now that he gets to have the week break. I think it's, for me, I think it helps him massively, but in terms of focus, in terms of being able to hit levels, and he'll have that as well between this one and Luton. You would have thought I very much wouldn't expect him to play any part against Bournemouth. So I think that's helping him. But I think that there is also this idea of the manager actually says in his comments around McAllister and other bits and pieces, it helps when you've got defenders who can defend into midfield. And it looks to me like he's enjoying that bit as well massively. So on the McAllister conversation, in a way, the argument around Szoboszlai and Gravenberch and what else is going on there is valid. But the other thing that's happening as well is at times Konate and Van Dijk, and I think your point is Van Dijk's now doing it more and coming all the way in to win the first thing to then set up the play. Yeah,
being even more proactive than he was at his best, certainly. And we all know about his range of passing on the ball too when he steps forward into midfield. So I'm just really, really enjoying watching him play at the moment. I think so many questions have been asked of him. He's obviously had such a difficult year last year with the World Cup, and the fact that you allude to that he's just playing far too many games. We were relying on him more than we should. Certainly for a player who came back from such a serious injury as well. He was just thrown straight back in at the deep end. So it's, we've been far smarter now with his use, and obviously we're able to do that because of the quality in reserve with Konate and Matip and Gomez.
He does. I mean, I think in a way he was a little unfairly judged last season as well, in as much as he has that injury, and I think he doesn't start for, it's nearly 6 weeks after Brentford on Jan 3rd, and we don't see him for quite a while. And then but either side of that, he's in a team that's struggling, quite frankly, and players alongside him in Matip and occasionally Gomez, who are going through personal bad spells, and Konate, who's not available for large things. And also, you could see, it is fair to say his body language was different last season. He cut a frustrated figure at time. He couldn't be the person he wants. Even Virgil van Dijk needs to play with confidence, right? I think the very best in the world need confidence. And I think this season, the strengthening around him, the legs around him, the energy around him has allowed him to he didn't need rebuilding, but he's able to have gained a new sense of himself. And there's no doubt the captaincy helps at all. I do wonder sometimes whether we can imagine these things, but I do think it's there. Yeah. He is a complete. What I think we are finally seeing is the road home to how we can still have Virgil van Dijk as a key member of our team for at least another 3 years. I hope we don't get to the situation there are going to be games where somebody does him for pace, some new young whippet, and we go, he's gone, he's not the same. And I think we just have to be calm around that and realise that's not his job anymore.
Yeah, totally. I think, for the simple fact, like he's not having to shout at his midfielders as much as he used to. And that's something I've noticed with him. It is a lot more calm and it's a lot more sort of organised around him. I mean, he's always operated at his best, like any football player would, when that is sort of the environment around him. And it's even more important, I think, when you're a centre-half. You have the whole game in front of you. You see it. You probably see where it's going wrong more than anyone else. And for him to see all these pieces of the puzzle fitting now, it probably makes life really easy for him. And, even in this period that he's come back this season and last season as well, he had to figure out his body again, and he had to figure out how he had to evolve as a player and sort of utilise his strengths and utilise his sort of physique again, to become this sort of new version of himself. I don't think there's been massive differences. I don't think there's like a huge sort of change in how he's been playing overall. But I think, against sides like Forest, it is a different role when you're a centre-half, isn't it? It is different in terms of where you're going to win the ball back, where you're going to be positioned, what your responsibilities are on the ball, and how you play it and things like that. You didn't see loads of the big cross-diagonal passes that he used to do, but it's intelligence and it's sort of making sure everyone around him is aware of where they need to be. And I think, as a captain, but also just as a centre-half, that's so important when you're at that sort of elite level to sort of feel that comfort.
The other one already brought up to an extent by Fuad is Jota/Nunez. I think we've talked a lot about Nunez and Salah over the course of the campaign, and there's reason to continue to talk about Nunez and Salah, don't get me wrong. But I thought that they dovetailed really, really well. The constant roving of both of them. And I think there's something with Nunez's movement last couple of games when he's been involved, is that it's been actually just genuinely quite conventional. It's been top quality, but quite conventional. It's not been this notion of no one quite knows where he's going to be. He's exactly where a centre-forward should be, quite continually, Rob. And I think that's helping everyone, and that interchanging them with Jota and what Jota brings, because I think Jota's first half performance is absolutely brilliant against Forest, and what the two of them show there, I thought was immense. And it becomes this question of, well, you need a Salah plan, and you need a Nunez plan, and you need a Jota plan, and you need a Szoboszlai plan. You can only have so many plans. You can only have so many plans before you play a football match.
Yeah, what we're seeing as well, as much as all the qualities they naturally bring and the intelligence they have as forwards, is consistency of form. We're getting that now from all of them. You're not having the game. I don't know what Jota was doing today, really, or Nunes. It was a bit mad, and question mark against him. I feel confident. I know he's come back from an injury, but when he's fully up to speed within a couple of weeks, hopefully, I think you could just drop Gakpo in, and I think we'll be saying the same things about him.
Lewis, almost all full forward score yesterday.
But same for Lewis.
But for the fact that Gakpo was 9 yards offside, and no one's got any idea where the line is, just give it the time.
It was an old school. The entire ground knew he was offside. So but that obviously applies to Luis Diaz as well. But those two were the guys in possession yesterday. I totally agree with you about Nunes. I'm fascinated but I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when he has this. Legendary conversation with Bielsa earlier in the season, where Bielsa is his international manager, for those who don't know, sort of sat him down on a Zoom call. A couple of Zoom calls, they went through exactly how he could up his game. And I think a lot of it's been is just, as you say, just do centre-forward-y things, because he makes the runs that classic Liverpool forwards that in my lifetime have made. He makes Ian Rush-like runs. He makes Pete Torres-like runs.
Very Torres, I thought yesterday.
Yeah. I've noticed a little bit of him in recent performances, a little bit less of the swash and the buckle that he's felt the need to do. But he has that when he wants it. When Salah slips him in for the first, the whip on the shot, which is quietly a speciality of his, is just so phenomenal, so much spin on the ball. The keeper, I know he'll take some flack for it, and Andy and I were talking about it beforehand. I think it's harsh. He's either letting that in or he's palming it back into play. It's really up the job of the defenders around him to deal with that. But it is all about Nunes. And, Szoboszlai puts it on a plate for him for number 2. But you just do have to be there. That is a goal, only certain types of forwards seem to score. You can have watch different types of Liverpool forwards, and some, I'll pick for out of nowhere, a Collymore back in the day, or I don't know, it just came to mind. They didn't score that kind of goal. They weren't natural poachers. And I think with him and Jota, and Gakpo to a degree, and Mo Salah to a degree, they're all natural poachers. And I have to throw in Luis Diaz, quite frankly, has scored quite a few goals on the edge of the 6-yard box. May not be as readily in those positions because he's asked to make the pitch bigger, I think, more than the others are. But they're all natural. It feels they're all on the verge of being able to say these are natural goal scorers, all 5 of them.
Other than whether Fuad will show up or he'll be on holiday in Dubai. There's nothing that excites me as much as seeing Darwin Núñez at the moment when I go to the game.
Agreed.
I just can't wait to see him every game and just see him involved. And it's interesting we had this moment on Wednesday where obviously all the memes again, all the rhetoric about the miss, but it missed the build up to the miss was something you've very rarely seen from a Liverpool forward outside of maybe Luis Suarez in recent years. Salah at his best.
If he scores, we're gushing about that goal. By the way,
obviously you take into account the quality of the opposition, but the way he rounded the defender first and then rounded the goalkeeper, it was reminiscent of R9, the original Ronaldo at his peak. I remember him giving a great interview and he said, "Why do you run around goalkeepers so often? Why do you take around the keeper?" He just said, "It's easier." It's easier to run around the goalie. And Núñez could have stopped and slid it in. He could have just ran into the net with the ball. But he's just taken that. He brushed it off on social media, didn't he? And yesterday he didn't seem at all fazed by a couple of early misses, a couple of missed hits. I think there's one missed kick, doesn't he, early on? And when you said it was almost a speculative shot, the one the keeper palms wide, but there's always a possibility with the way he hits it.
He hits it so hard and so heavy.
Yeah,
there's a heaviness to the way he hits it. Yeah. And as Rob says, there's this one with the fade, and there's the one, as I say, that feels like it hits heavy. You've got to deal with that. It's going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah, it creates huge problems, and he's an amazing focal point for our side. And then Jota, as we discussed, we've not really touched upon the fact that Jota's come into the game at the last minute, not expecting to start, at least because of the Luis Diaz situation, obviously with his parents being kidnapped in Colombia, and thoughts with him and his family, and hope that's resolved as quick as possible. But Jota's come in, and he's, as you mentioned, Rob, he's been on such a rich vein of form, Jota. It feels like he's been, he's getting his minutes here and there, used quite sparingly, but he's always popping up with a goal. He's always contributing to a goal. He's actually in a great vein of form, and could yesterday have thought to himself, "Well, I deserve a start."
I think he's got 12 in 20. It's 12 in his last 20 appearances, something like that.
Wow.
It's second only to Salah in terms of his. Yeah,
that's fantastic. And we've seen in the past with him, when he's on this kind of a run, you just want to see him get as many minutes because we've seen it. But then with Núñez, I saw a stat that that's 8 goals and 8 assists this season in all appearances for club and country.
Yeah.
So he's averaging a goal and assist every 59 minutes. And he just looks like a constant threat.
He's a goal a game as well. Just with the old-fashioned just goal stat now. But it is a goal a game. I mean,
and we're no longer clinging to the assist to bolster his statistics, which is a good thing.
Yeah. He's always involved as well, I think, and that can sometimes be a good thing. Or that's obviously a good thing, but can also be a bit of a bad thing. But I think previously when he's not been involved, it feels like it's not his day. But he's now got the sort of confidence and ability to contribute in other ways all over the pitch. The way he sort of holds onto the ball. There was a couple times yesterday where he won the ball back in our own half, or he was sort of received the ball in our own half, and he wins the foul when there's 2-3 players around him, and just as smart with his body, just smart with how he manipulates the ball and brings others in. And I think that's a bit that hasn't really been talked about too much, maybe outside our bubble, just how much he contributes. I don't think Haaland's doing some of the stuff he does in terms of other parts of the pitch and bringing other players into it, not just in terms of assists, but I think just general link up and intelligent passing. He's got that ability to play a long raking ball, but also the short intricate ones as well.
The next part of this, Rob, is the assurance. We started off saying we could have it all. It's the combination of knowing the ropes with some of them and the excitement for others of it being the first time for some of these lads in terms of being what feels like the business end. You don't win anything after 10 games, but you can lose it. And we saw that last season, and I'd argue we're seeing it now in a few of the sides who are beneath us in the table. It was interesting to me after yesterday's results. You can see a break between 5th and 6th, and that stuff creeps up on you if you're not careful.
It's daylight 5 points.
Suddenly real daylight. That suddenly just hits, and you're like, oh, how did that happen? But you can see, it feels to me anyway, as though Liverpool should only be looking upwards.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not ruling Newcastle out of this. They slipped at the weekend and didn't look as good as they have recently. But they've got it in them, I think, to go and win 5 out of 6. I'm not saying they'll sustain that rate all season, but they've got it in them. So I wouldn't rule them out. But broadly, yeah, it feels that way. It's almost a question which of those. This top 5, would you better get falling? It feels like statistically one should join that group, and I'm put my money on Newcastle, and one should fall away in the next 10. It's interesting to see which. I think a lot of people might say Villa, but some crafty money might put some money on Tottenham, although it would take some fall away now given the start they've made. But yeah, this is an interesting league, this, isn't it? I don't think that after 10 games you definitely have the pattern set. We've seen so many seasons. I mean, I think in the year Chelsea win it under Conte,
yeah.
Liverpool are, after the first 10, I think might even be top, something like that. And we actually do reasonably well the next, but you see a falling away of teams. So it's difficult to say. I even think it's difficult to count chickens as far as we're concerned. The thing that I do like about our positioning, I haven't analysed all the other teams in as much detail, is we have a lot of players with a lot more to come. And all these conversations we're having about individuals, and it must come. I'm looking at Darwin Núñez. I'm thinking, bar him being unlucky with injury again or some mad sending off, unless he gets those sort of interruptions. But if he gets a clean run at it, I think he's going to get better and better, and you're going to see some braces, you're going to see a hat-trick, and you're going to see a confidence grow. And again, we talked about confidence earlier, confidence in young players. They don't know sometimes when they're 21, 22, 23 yet what kind of footballer they're going to be, what kind of career. When things go for them over a period of time, they suddenly they can see the horizon. You can see it with Trent when he realised, I might just be world class, I don't know what happened 2 or 3 years ago. And then it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think you're seeing, I've listed Núñez here, Dominic Szoboszlai. McAllister is a young player still, right? But he's now in a big team. He could soon have a very different view of himself. Curtis will come back in his way. Gravenberch, that could be a stellar trajectory there. And Trent himself, and so on and so on. I'm sure I've missed out somebody who Canate, again, yeah. So this is why I'm getting more optimistic by the week, really, because of these ceilings I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. I think that the thing with Spurs and obviously Arsenal have had last season, and they are building. You can't discount that. But with Spurs, the manager's interesting saying there's still loads to come from his side, and obviously the manager is going to say that. But I think that's more in a sense of there's an evolution still here. Maybe not. It's not totally with the players we've got. A lot of them are probably playing, not out their skin, but they are really sort of everything is going their way. If you look at it that way, but it's more an evolution in terms of big changes. Are probably still needed. That they still probably need a couple transfer windows and things like that. But just like you're saying there, Rob, I feel like we've already got everything in. We've got everything in. It's now just them working it out together. It's a manager working out. He probably still doesn't know what his best midfield is, and that's probably partly by design because he wants to have those options and the different combinations. But I feel like Liverpool have got many ways now to win a football game, and the threats from all over the pitches is something new. It's something we haven't seen before quite in the same way. And I'm not quite seeing that in sort of some of the other sides in terms of our rivals. And it's just exciting, isn't it? It's exciting for everyone. Harvey Elliott's another one I keep thinking of, and I'm like, every time I've seen him come on or even start, he's looked at different play. He's looked so sort of hungry and chomping at the bit, and that's, I think when your subs are doing that, it's always a really good sign, isn't it, in terms of where you are and in terms of how if things do go wrong, it doesn't sort of derail everything. It's not like momentum can just be sort of taken away that easily. There's players here, there's plans here, and there's sort of ideas that different players have that can sort of make this side win in different ways.
I think the role of the Europa League in all this is key as well, with us being able to rest and completely change the team midweek. It's almost given us the ability to reset, hasn't it, the Europa League this season? Spurs obviously flying high, with no European football at all, a week to prepare for games. Newcastle, I'm under no doubt about their quality and their strengths, but over the next 5 or 6 weeks, they've got these huge games with Dortmund, with PSG, where they're throwing everything at progressing through that Champions League group. And then they have tough fixtures at the weekend then that follow on from that, where they're not able to make those changes. So I think it's put us in a really strong position, the way Jurgen's using the squad and the way that being in the Europa League has allowed him to use the squad.
I'm enjoying the joy of just watching this team percolate, Neil. I'd watch them again today if I could. I'd watch them tomorrow. That genuinely is, it's a genuine vibe of whether they're playing Europa League football, whether they're playing League football, League Cup football. I'm just enjoying the idea of watching these footballers play with one another and learn and progress.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a joy, isn't it, when we're playing so well and we're scoring so many goals, 2 or 3 goals every game, it feels. We're a joy to watch, and it's the joy of seeing, as you say, the players come in who are on the fringes and start thinking about what they could add to this. We've not mentioned him today. Wataru Endo has had a really strong game midweek, and again he's come off the bench and he's looked like he's much more in tune with what we're doing now. I hadn't realised that his attacking capabilities, I thought when he was coming that he was just a plain destroyer. But you can see with the way he moves the ball so sharply, and also the runs forward he makes. You can almost see Jurgen having to, I think Jurgen mentioned it once already this season, having to remind him of his defensive duties first and foremost, which is something I didn't think any of us would be saying, that he'd be hoping to get in and around the box. And that was the thing that struck me again yesterday, especially in the first 20 minutes or so with Gravenberch. And there was a few moments where they were almost falling over each other to be the one to hit it. Some of the
There's the one where Szoboszlai looks like he's going to hit it, shifts it, creates the space, then looks to play Gravenberch in, and you're a bit like, you could have just gone with your left there.
Yeah.
You were in the box, it opens up, you could have just gone with your left there.
Yeah, but you can see the joy with which they're playing and realising
trusting each other.
Yeah, exactly, and realising the quality that they both inherently have. And we've seen that with Trent gushing over Szoboszlai, well, everyone gushing over Szoboszlai, and rightly so. Very jealous of the Anfield Wrap's Harriet Pryor yesterday, for a one-on-one interview with Big Dom. I'd have loved to have been in her shoes. But you can see that they're realising the capability there, and we're still looking at players who at the moment are sidelined, obviously Luis Diaz because of the situation, but Thiago and what he could bring if he perhaps was slipped into that role as the 6 in some of these games at home. Whether that's a forlorn hope, I don't know. But
and Europe's best young burgeoning number 6, Stefan Bajcetic.
Yeah, there's so much to be positive about. And
that guy.
And whatever lineup we're fielding at the moment, I'm expecting goals and expecting Liverpool win.
Okay, excellent stuff all around. We're going to talk about Bournemouth in a minute or two, but before then, a couple of weeks back, I spoke to Johan Anderson about Kindred, about STOs, about Liverpool's status around social enterprises. Stay with this, it's genuinely very interesting indeed. Liverpool City Region won an award in terms of its social enterprise and its social enterprise status. That came through at the start of October. Johan Anderson, the former mayor of Liverpool, accepted the award, and she's inexorably involved in the process of social enterprises being central to Liverpool's economy. Now, we're going to go through this step by step because this has been a learning education for me. It's going to be a learning education for you, and we're going to move through it with Joanne to explain what this is. So the first thing, whenever I get sent these documents, and I do, in part because I want to do it the Anfield Wrap, and you've sent me some for the purposes of this, the first thing to say is, Liverpool has a great many what we call STOs. STOs are socially trading organisations. That sounds very, very, very formal. How would you define an STO?
So a socially trading organisation, also known as a social enterprise, is a business that looks at the triple bottom line: profit, social impact and environmental impact. So these are what's called purpose-led organisations. So it's not for profit, that, you know, they want to make a profit, but that profit that they do make goes back into their organisation, and they usually have a social mission, whether that's helping homeless people, whether that's working with young kids who are helping them divert them away from crime, but they usually have a social mission, usually around the environment as well. They have a good environmental impact. So different from your normal SME or your normal organisation in the sense that very much driven by its purpose.
So when we think about that purpose and think about that within Liverpool, there has been, part of why Liverpool wins this award is because there's a great number of these within Liverpool, but there's also a desire for there to be a push to get more and more. For instance, Steve Rotherham, when this came out, said he was really pleased that Liverpool City Region is the first city region to gain this accreditation. It builds on the investment and the investments in Kindred, which is an organisation you're part of, to support these STOs across the whole of the region.
Yeah. So we've had socially trading organisations. We were once called the social enterprise mafia back in the early 2000s. We were sort of leading the way in the country of loads of socially trading organisations. So think of Bulky Bob's, Furniture Resource Centre, Blackburn House, the Women's Organisation, all socially trading organisations. The one I like to explain to people, because I think they get it the most, is Home Baked at Anfield with the pies, because it's a quality pie. You know, you're eating the best pie there is, a Scouse pie. You perhaps aren't buying it for the reason of it also helps homeless people into work and employment and has other social missions. You might just be buying it because it's a nice pie.
You might just want the piece of, you want the food, you want the product.
Yeah, so a quality product, because a lot of people aren't buying it for its social mission. They're buying it because they want a quality product. So we've been doing social enterprises, social trading organisations for a long time in Liverpool. In fact, I set up the first black-led social enterprise in 2000 in a vision consultancy, an equal ops consultancy, and I set up a Black Social Traders network just before I was married as well.
So to go through this, there was a Kindred across the last couple of years that we've increased in terms of what the way Kindred has supported. We've increased employees by 95%, 71 jobs to 158 in there as well. Increased the collective turnover by over 100%. But as far as you're concerned, this is just the first step. There's a lot to be proud of here, but this is a way to reimagine the way in which effectively capital can work across the whole city region.
And we're building a social economy, and saying building a social economy, you know, Social Enterprise UK Limited as accreditors with social enterprise status for the region, recognising the good work that's gone on a long time. And before Kindred, there was lots of people working in the field as social enterprise, like the School of Social Entrepreneurs. But Kindred is a 6.5 million investment pot from the Liverpool City region, and that was set up a few years ago with Power to Change. And the aim of that was, you know, asking the community, this is your money, what do you want to do to help your economy grow? And so what's special about Kindred compared to other places across the country is we co-designed the financial products for Kindred for those socially trading organisations. So they wanted 0% interest, they wanted unsecured loans, they wanted to pay back some in social impact. And so we've done that. Well, the Kindred have done that, and they've had the first two investment rounds, got those fantastic stats in terms of economic impact and social impact. They've, you know, come up with over 50 new social innovations within communities, as well as making a good environmental impact, as well as reaching 25% of each investment round has gone to black-led social enterprises, and nearly 50 have gone to female-led social enterprises. Now, that just might be the way we do things up here, but actually that's quite new across the country, because everyone's trying to reach those black-led social trading organisations and stimulate that social economy. Kindred are very good at that, but I imagine, as you imagine, 6.5 million on those terms is going to run out pretty quickly. So Power to Change have commissioned me to try and turn that pot into 50 million. And I've been working on this a while, working with social investors across the country, saying, you know, give some of your money for Liverpool, basically. And not just that, we're being really cheeky. We're saying, not only do we want your investments, it mightn't be that Kindred becomes a big social investment fund. It might be just that we just earmark other social investment funds for Liverpool, but we want it recycled back into the region on a place-based investment. And I just think, these, when you talk about 50 million and big numbers, and that can feel quite scary. What I see is transformation on an absolute...
Just as the people listening to this, so let's be clear about this. When we say recycle back in on place-based investments, it is the idea, isn't it, that if we get this right, if you get this right, the people you're working with get this right, and not that everything's got to succeed, but if the overall principle works, it is the idea that it can become self-perpetuating over a period of time.
Yeah, and so, normal business failure rates, I don't know the stats of it, we found in, social trading organisations, people give up their whole lives, it's a whole passion to them. If you look at Paul of Farm Urban, he's done a PhD in it, it's his whole passion. So Kindred has those relationships, trusted relationships with people over the longer term. Future Yards is being involved with Kindred. Prime example, I think that was a £300 grant the first time. Not by Kindred, but a long time ago, but in other guises.
£300,000 grant?
No, £300.
Just only £300?
To do an event,
wow.
And now they employ 40 people and £500,000 turnover or whatever. I don't know the...
And a social hub in Birkenhead, I'll point that out, and an arts hub in Birkenhead, an area that didn't have anywhere near as much arts funding as you'd like.
So Kindred have been involved with sort of creating these clusters and helping these clusters to grow, and they're not taking full credit, but actually because the Future Yard, what happens in that area, and down the street a bakeries opens, and that's the kinds of things. So not only do we have those great outcomes in terms of economic impact, but we take over areas that are, other people don't want to be in, and it's just, so Baltic is a prime creative of, it's one of the, I think it's one of the biggest asset owner and CICs, so social trading organisations in the country. But for those of us that are old enough, the Baltic area was a terrible area 15 years ago, wasn't it? There was nothing going on.
I am also old enough.
Yeah, you are old enough. But that's so Baltic is a great example. Not everyone's going to be as big as Baltic, but we're finding other clusters starting in other areas because of this activity being stimulated. So we create, or they create at Kindred, a good pipeline, new people entering into this world of social trading organisation. That first stage to grow social investments is really scary. Certainly as a social trading organisation, I didn't take on social investments. I was risk averse. Despite my own personal finances, I was risk averse to borrow money from a business perspective. And that's quite scary, but that's how businesses grow. So the first kinds of rounds of social investment, which can be low scale, can be anything from £10,000 to £70,000. Getting into that, mindset of actually believing in my business enough that I'll be able to pay this back, and knowing that Kindred, trusting that it's our money, it's not a bank, it belongs to all of us as social trading organisations. To much bigger people now, we're far urban, in order to grow, will need to invest in themselves and get money in order to do that.
So people can find Kindred, you just type it into any search engine.
Kindred LCR.
Kindred LCR sits there for that. If for either side of this, I'd say is a key part. If people are interested, perhaps in finding a way to invest or contribute in the one sense, or just see what sort of social enterprises STOs are part of this. The flip side is if people would like to find ways to get funding as well. Kindred LCR. That's what they should look for.
And there's a social enterprise directory on Kindred LCR. So also buy from social trading organisations, because you're not just getting a good pie, you're doing a good social impact.
There you go. That's everything you need to know. It was educational for all of us. There weren't too many acronyms either. If you want to know more, it's all on that website. And they do explain the acronyms as they go. As ever, a pleasure to speak to Joanna. Bournemouth then, Roberto, what do you think he's going to do? I think he's going to go a bit weaker than...
Is this the one where you're going to your Bobby Clark shout?
Well, no, Bobby's not going to be available, I don't think.
What's wrong with him?
Well, he's not been in any squads because he's not been... The manager said after the Thursday night game that Bobby Clark and Ben Doak would have featured, but they both got injuries at the minute. So I don't think Bobby Clark's unfortunately going to be involved, and that's why I'm intrigued by what we think he's going to do with the team for this one, because, obviously there is the ongoing situation for Luis Diaz. There's a couple of players coming back from injury. There's other players, I think, who... This is going to sound mad to people who aren't in this country, so please bear with me on this. Bournemouth's a long way away, and I think if, for instance, he's not going to use Virgil van Dijk, I don't think he's going to want him to travel. almost like he'd probably rather Virgil slept in his own bed. I think there's a fair chance that Mo Salah doesn't go. I think so far with the Europa League games, I think there's always been this idea of certain players will come off the bench, keep them sharp, etc., etc. I think there's a fighting chance Liverpool's weakest 11, maybe of the whole season, although we'll see if they manage to turn the 2 Europa League games into dead rubbers, could be this one. Weakest 11 and bench could be this one. I'm basing that on the fact that there's 5 or 6 unavailable at the minute for this. I think it might be a changed team, but there might not be a break glass option on the bench. Just sort of see what I mean.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because of those kind of. I didn't realise Doak was still going to be out, so that does create a problem.
He hasn't. Him or Pep Linders haven't done the press conference yet, and I suspect they'll be asked about Doak and they'll be asked about Clark, but they weren't in the 20 for the Europa League game. They weren't in the 20 for the game at the midweekend at the weekend either.
Well, the front three we saw starting in the Europa were Harvey one side, Jota the other, and Nunes got a game. The situation with Luis Diaz, and they don't know how long it's going to go on for, and his availability is going to be. That means they're going to have to be pretty cautious around the front three at the moment. Well, the remaining front three. I think Gakpo is now ready to be dropped in and needs the minute. So Gakpo, he didn't start in last week in midweek either. No. I think I'm going to say Gakpo and Elliott are going to be in the front three regardless, and that's a good start. Whoever else makes the cut with them.
Perhaps Jota, who's taken off.
He might, I think so too. I think
the 5 subs I think comes into his advantage here. That he could do 45-45 if he wanted to, or something like that.
I do think Nunes and Salah will be on the bench. I think he would like to. He likes the idea of getting them on and getting them amongst the goals if they can. It's good for their confidence. We always talk about getting Salah a goal. I think the manager in his own mind is thinking, yeah, but in 2 years' time, it's going to be about Nunes more in terms of our goal haul. So I want to get Nunes a goal as much as possible too. So I think they will travel. I agree Van Dijk probably won't travel. Curtis definitely comes in because he needs minutes. Gravenberch's going to be an interesting one because he's now started 2, and if anything, that was his leggiest looking game, I thought, even though he comes on.
I thought he tied in both halves, markedly in both halves. I think he's good for the first 10 of the second half, he's good for the first 25 of the first, but I thought you actually saw him tire after that point in both halves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the boy's natural fitness levels are, but he had a year of virtually playing no 90 minutes or even 80 minutes, 25, 15-minute games. So I think he's a build-up job. So I don't think he'll start. So Endo and Curtis, so I can see 2 out the front 3 are obvious, 2 out the midfield are obvious in Endo and Curtis. And in defence, I think obviously the inclusion of Matip and Gomez is obvious. But now you've got another Protect Tsimikas issue. You've got Trent now. He did let him start last midweek, so he's not going to start. So who is the right back option? There's no Conor Bradley there.
Possibly Gomez and Quansah started centre half next to Matip.
Actually, you're right, yeah. Because Quansah didn't get any significant minutes, did he, last week? So, yeah. But then left back again, it could be a Chambers-Scanlon kind of move. So I think we are going into the under-21s, the academy. I think that's the one definite, but I could see another one somewhere. I'm not sure who the forward one. Trey Naoni, very, very promising young talent we got from Leicester. He might be 16, 17. I think he'll be in the squad because he trained with the first team. Whether they do something wild and put
I think
him
he
in.
might start McConnell.
Yeah,
McConnell centre mid.
I think he could with Endo and Curtis.
Jones.
I do agree. I think circumstance will force a weaker team. I don't think it's going to be a tactical decision to do. I think it would be stronger had we not got this mounting sort of injury list.
Yeah, he does substitute Trent again, though, yesterday, with 15 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and I still get the feeling that he's still been working Trent back towards his optimum fitness. So I'm not sure whether we might see him involved. I think it could be a little bit stronger than perhaps you're thinking, but it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to judge how seriously are Bournemouth going to take this.
So my Bournemouth thing is, so for instance, in wide areas, they're dead interest in Bournemouth because I don't think Iriola's really settled on his preferred wingers, and he's got 4 or 5 of them, if you see what I mean. So there's an argument, he's been just sort of chopping and changing. So Kluivert, I don't think starts for him at the weekend, but we've seen Kluivert be a good player at different times, if you see what I mean. So I think why I think this is a dangerous fixture is because I think that Bournemouth can make sort of 6 or 7 changes and the level might be really the same, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's in part because the level's not that high, not been that high so far this season. And also, they'll want to build on the weekend's win. You know, I think there'll be a real sense for them of they're at home, they'll want to build on the weekend's win. It's a manager who is under a bit of pressure. So the idea of getting a bit of a scalp, building into the, you know, I can see it being a really tricky affair for that reason.
Yeah, I can.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I just had a thought. If he does go with your stronger theory, because what I've noticed is like players who haven't had a huge amount of minutes, or like someone who's alternate, Szoboszlai could be dropped in. I could see that. He's previously rested him alternately, but Szoboszlai's naturally fit. He might just go, you know what, there's got to be the odd week where you play 3 games, and maybe it's only 60, 65. But if he was to take the strong approach that you're suggesting, that could be one.
Yeah,
I
do think it's a tricky fixture, and we're on such a crest of a wave at the moment. I don't want to see it dented by a disappointing League Cup exit.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, Jürgen,
I think he'd agree.
Yeah, I mean, they play at home on Thursday night, don't they, as well? It's not like they've been away in Europe and had a tricky sort of Europa League game somewhere mad. So I think I'm not too sure he's going to go as weak as maybe as we were saying at the start. But I'd like to see Endo and Jones in midfield. I think that's something I'd like to just see is build on a little bit. And you know, Jones needs the minutes, doesn't he? He should be playing the 90. I want to see a few of them getting the rhythm of doing that. And I don't know, maybe there could be a funky thing with a bit of a 4-4-2 if he is worried about the forwards a bit and doesn't want to sort of stretch too many and do the 45-45. I'm not sure.
Be interesting what we expect them going to win.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 2-0.
Yeah, I'm backing Liverpool all the way this season. There's not, I would say all the way, like Big Dom Szoboszlai said, to win everything. Yes.
To win everything, yes.
Yeah, I think there's a real will to win the cups this season. You know, you can never say with the league, but I think Jürgen will be. You can plan this season around having a real go in the cups, can't you? Because it's there. Let's put it so you can get through the first phases of them in second gear, as we've thus far shown.
Yeah. Okay, excellent stuff. Everyone is excited, and rightly so. We are on tour in November. I said the places at the start of the show. Don't make me say them again. Don't make me say them next week. Tickets are selling, but Craig Hannon will kill me if you don't buy a ticket and you're in any of those places. He will hold me personally responsible, so see it as a favour. It would be great to see you in all of those locations as we're going across the United States. Thank you very much to Joanne Anderson for coming in and having that conversation with us, Andy Heaton for producing on the audio side, Jordan Singleton on the video side, and of course the peerless Rob Gutmann, the splendid Fuad Hasan, and the man, the myth, the concept that is Neil Docking. See you soon.